Greetings, Cyberspace. This is episode 1 of the Double Density podcast with your hosts, Brian and Angelo. Seeing as though this is the first episode, I thought that Angelo and I could sort of give a brief introduction as to who we are and what we plan on doing with this podcast, and sort of explore our love of tech and our love of the kooks within the paranormal community, and sort of go into different kinds of tangents there. So without further ado, Angelo, are you there?
I'm here.
Perfect.
How are you tonight, Brian?
I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm well.
Great. So, Angelo, the age-old question, ASL. What is your ASL, Angelo?
So I'm 39. I'm obviously a male with this voice, I think. I don't know. I hear myself in my earphones and I sound male. And I'm in Montreal. Well, not really Montreal. I'm actually in Mont-Saint-Hilaire, which is a UFO hotspot, apparently.
Which we'll get into at a later episode because we have ideas. But suffice it to say, 39, male, Saint-Hilaire, you work in the higher ed industry. Let's just leave it that way.
In the what?
In the higher ed industry.
Yes. Okay, I do.
Sure. And so my ASL is 31, male, and I actually live on the island of Montreal, unlike you who tried to lie to all of our listeners.
That's true. I grew up there. I work there, but I don't live there.
And why don't you live there?
Because it's too expensive to live in the city.
I could deal with that. I mean, I'm still renting, right? So I don't really know anything. I also don't have offspring yet. I have a cat. That's about it. So I don't really need to worry about that.
Yeah, it's also nice living away from the city. I do like to go out and look at the stars in the evening, as cheesy as that sounds. It's kind of fun to look up in the sky and see what's up there. And we have a nice mountain, too.
We also have a mountain in Montreal. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, yeah. It's in the middle.
So I guess the idea behind this podcast is we talk, in our day-to-day lives, we talk to each other a lot about different things, namely tech, innovations in tech, weird things in tech, and also older things in tech, which you and I sort of have a nostalgic streak going with a lot of different things. We'll often show each other articles or videos, and you were recently playing around with, they were Mac emulators on archive.org?
Yeah, it was really cool. They just got those up there a few weeks ago. It brings me back to the mid to late 80s and going back to the beginning of high school and of elementary school, looking at these old computers and what got me really started to be interested in this stuff.
So you used Macs in elementary school and then same thing in high school, or were you sort of...
So elementary school was more Apple IIs because, look, this was the mid 80s. We didn't really have a lot of computers available, and there was kind of a novelty. So we'd play Logo and on the Apple IIs with our green screens. But the early Macs, although they came out in 84, I didn't really get a chance to play around with them much until 1989 when I went to high school.
And then you continued onwards, and you were a PC person for a little while, and then you came back to the Mac family.
Exactly. In like 91, I got I think it was a Magnavox PC, 16 megahertz, 386 SX with a 1X CD-ROM that you actually had to use a CD caddy to put it in there.
And was there like a 5 1/4 disc?
No 5 1/4, just 3.5 with a CD-ROM, which took the spot of the normally where it would be occupied by a 5 1/4. It was a big deal to have a CD-ROM.
Yeah, no kidding.
I had the encyclopedia. I think it was New Groyler's Encyclopedia or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It wasn't Encarta though. And we printed many high school science paper off of that, and just instead of just actually typing it out ourselves, we would literally print it out of the encyclopedia, cut off the copyright on the top and the bottom, and just stick it on cardboard.
So you're admitting to academic fraud right now.
Did I say we? I said some people in my
others
in my class would do
right,
that.
Right,
do
of
that.
course.
I would never do that. And so that I had that computer for a while. It was great. It had a whole 50 megabytes of hard drive space, which would be mostly taken up by Wing Commander 2, which was a big deal back then.
Right. Did you have the joystick?
I did. I bought one. It came with Commander Keen.
Oh man, that takes me back.
Yeah.
Like growing up, I had my first computer was an old CGA, 5 1/4, a lot of shareware. There's an old IBM game called Alley Cat that I was fixated on, and I think I mentioned this to you once, but we also somehow ended up with a copy of Leisure Suit Larry, even though it was only 7. It was lying around the house, and I tried playing it, But the thing is, it was very frustrating because I didn't understand a lot of the commands that you had to use in order to be able to move around. So it was kind of annoying. And then we had a Win 3.1 PC 92, I want to say 93, and with
See,
it
I never actually used Windows 3.1.
Oh, you're missing out, my friend.
I had Geoworks Ensemble on that Magnavox. I can look it up on the Wikipedia and put it in our show notes.
So you went from there to Win 95, I guess?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, with the first PC I ever got, I've never mentioned this to you, and I totally don't know why, but we got, I don't remember where we bought it, but the retailer had thrown in a 10 or 12 set of different kinds of discs, including Encarta and a bunch of other ones, and there were two that were particularly important to my development as someone who used computers. One of them was a CD of like 250 shareware games. So Commander Keen was on there, Doom, a great shooter called Raptor, like all the old.
I remember that game.
Yep.
I remember those types of discs. Those are great. That's where I first discovered Wolfenstein 3D.
Right, same thing with me. And so that was great to sort of. But the bummer side of that is that a lot of them unfortunately were not functional for one reason or another. So you kind of booted it up, picked from the list, and hope for the best a lot of the time.
I remember that quite a bit. I remember there's a weird game where you were a floating ball in a maze and you have to shoot other floating balls in the maze.
Was it Faceball?
That rings a bell.
Because there was a game on Super Nintendo that was Faceball 2000. It was basically gigantic balls shooting each other.
Yes, I remember that actually. Yeah, I think it was something like that. It was a bizarre game though.
I mean, the early 90s was kind of the Wild West of both graphical as well as innovative PC game development, right? Like there's a lot of like weird kinds of no-name titles coming out of nowhere and suddenly hitting a big shareware.
And then there was stuff like the Seventh Guest. I don't know if you remember that. Those early
of course, yeah,
titles.
like that and Myst.
Yeah, I remember wanting Seventh Guest so bad, thinking, "Wow, that game looks amazing." I never played it until much later on. I saw it on YouTube, and it looked like garbage.
Did you also want to play its much gorier spiritual successor, Phantasmagoria?
I really wanted to play that. Never played it. I kind of looked at it in magazines, but I never actually got the chance to play. Did you play it?
No, unfortunately. I also spent a lot of my time looking at PC and gaming magazines. So quickly getting back, the other disc that was really important in my development was a disc simply called UFO. And on there was a sort of encyclopedia of different UFO encounters, as well as super grainy, low-res MPEGs, encoded in like 64 like kbps, not even megs per second. You couldn't make anything out, but I spent a lot of time with that disc as a kid.
What would a UFO picture be if it wasn't grainy, though?
That is a very good point. A fabrication, perhaps? A beautiful
Maybe.
Photoshop?
No, perhaps. Back then, Photoshop was just a glimmer in our eye, right? I think. Well, actually, Photoshop. When was that started? 91.
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah. So, going back to my my movement through the different PCs, I had that one in 91. Then got I think a compact Presario in 1997. So it was a high budget one too. With Windows 95 was amazing, or I think it was Windows 98 possibly.
97 could have been, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. They were all garbage, thinking back now. And then in 2001, I got another PC, even though I should have gotten a Mac. But the idea of playing games with my friends kind of won out over actually getting a computer that did stuff properly.
So at that time, you were playing Doom or Quake?
I never actually played Quake. I played Doom on my PC. It was a lot of those old Sierra adventure games. I really liked those quite a bit.
Like King's Quest?
Yeah, King's Quest, Police Quest.
Right.
Simon's Quest? No.
So during the time that you were enjoying your Presario, we had bought one of the early Pentiums for the house.
Oh, yeah?
And that lasted a couple of years. And then the weird thing is I always wanted to, and I think you and I have both discussed this in the past, is like I want to record sound and music and things, and I found that a lot of the times Windows wasn't as great for that, especially given the different drivers and all the sorts of different situations you had going on. Whereas with a Mac, it was pretty standard, it was plug and play, it was very easy to use, and I feel like that problem doesn't exist as much these days in PC culture, but it's still sort of around there. Whereas I feel like most of the time, we'll get into your situation right now with your Apple related issue in a sec. But yeah, I felt like I wanted to record things, and I felt like a Mac was a natural choice for more of the AV stuff.
It really was back then. I mean, now you're right. It's not much of a difference between Mac OS and Windows 10. Windows 10 is pretty good, actually. It's just you get used to something, and then you really are reticent to change. But I do have a hard time with Windows. I guess it's let's just say it's fine. Macs aren't exactly perfect either with when it comes to audio. I mean, actually, the Mac gave me no problems. I bought a new USB interface. It's a Tascam to do this whole podcast thing. I was planning to buy this interface later on, but I decided to get it earlier since we got this idea to do this show. And works great with the Mac. Plug it in, everything sounds great. Then I decided to try it on iOS with my phone. So I got one of those camera adapters, and with the new camera adapter actually has a lightning adapter as well, so you can plug it in and it should theoretically power a USB audio interface. It didn't in this case. So I went to the Apple store thinking that it could be just the fact that I have an older iPad plug that I was using. The adapter was a 10-watt one. And the guy at the Apple store was great. He let me open and test one of their newer 29-watt adapters that go with the MacBook, the little tiny MacBook, not the new MacBook Pros. He let me open it, test it, and it didn't work either. So I decided, okay, I'll just buy a USB hub. Got the USB hub from Amazon, a really good one. I like it, working well. Plugged it in. Light was on. Plugged it into the phone. It found the adapter. It found the USB interface. I could plug in instruments, getting the sound in, getting the sound out. Great. Go to plug in my awesome, yet old, 88 weighted keyboard, and no MIDI. Spent about 2 hours trying to figure out why the MIDI wasn't working, and I got to the point where there was just nothing else to do. I had done everything properly. I checked all the settings. Everything was right. I don't really have anybody to call because I'm usually the person that people call for this type of problem.
Which is something that both you and I face on a regular basis, I think.
I know. What do the tech nerds do when they have the problem? I mean, I usually just go to Google, but it was a relatively obscure issue. I mean, I couldn't find any actual help with this. I mean, I have a 17, 18-year-old, no, actually, yeah, it's 18. It's 2017. Yeah, it's 2017.
Well, it's up to you to decide what year it is.
So I have an 18-year-old, very good keyboard, but it wasn't working. But I mean, MIDI is MIDI, so it should have found it. It didn't.
So then, all told, like how long did you spend on this weekend?
So on Friday night, I spent a good 2.5 hours trying to get it to work. And then I just gave up and started playing. Instead of continuing to try and do this and drive myself crazy, I just played 1,000 Miles over and over and over again on the piano.
Is that your go-to song these days to play?
It's a lot. Well, because I always loved it. I was like, I never really learned how to play it. And then I realized it's actually a really easy song to play. So I learned how to play that. And then I played that a bit. And then I spent a bit more time the next day trying to get it to work. And I gave up again.
But you found a solution.
Well, not until I gave up and spent half an hour playing the song from The Office over and over again.
You do realize that this is what serial killers do, right?
Yeah.
You just continually practice the same songs that you've mastered already?
And then I'd actually never played The Office song. I just decided to try it. And then I was sitting on the couch watching the new Bill Nye special, which maybe we'll talk about at a future date on Netflix. I don't know if you knew that it was out.
I knew it was out. I haven't had time to watch it yet. I've been busy, as I've been telling you, watching the quintessential Canadian teen drama Ready or Not.
Great job. So I was sitting watching that, and I realized, wait a second, I have the old Rock Band controller. That had a MIDI out. Let me give it a try. So I go take a look, and I left batteries in it for about 5 or 6 years. So I had to get that fixed first. So I got that cleaned up, and I gave it a shot, and it worked great on my Mac. I tried it because I didn't feel like bringing the giant keyboard upstairs to test it on my Mac. Works great on the Mac. So I know it's definitely not that keyboard that's the problem. Plug it into my phone. Nope. Can't get MIDI into my phone. Everything else works. It's just MIDI. So I have no idea
There's
why.
something blocking that.
It's really odd.
So you can't be the on-the-go musician you want to be.
It's all right. I haven't tested it with my iPad Mini, although it's a bit old. I'm gonna try it also on my wife's iPad Air 2, which is obviously a good iPad. So I'll give it a try. I just haven't had a chance to give it that a shot.
Perfect, and we'll do an update on another episode hopefully, and I'll check in with you as to whether or not you're able to become that annoying man on the street who plays his guitar. Double Density presents the sounds of your youth. Double Density. So welcome back to the Double Density podcasts, and so apart from tech, you and I both have a love and a sort of like weird admiration, I guess would be the best word, for the paranormal at large.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think either of us actually believe anything paranormal is actually happening. It's more the fact that it's interesting to us that people do think this is something that can't really actually be explained one way or another. But it's just fascinating.
It's something that I like to call kook culture. Like, there's a lot of kooks out there who are peddling their own wares, and you and I have spent a lot of time talking about these kooks. Suffice it to say that we're both interested in weird things, mostly because of the people who are both I'm trying to figure out the right word here. Like self-aggrandizing, I guess, would be the best word to that, as well as delusional is another great word.
That's a really good word.
And with that in mind, we also picked something that combines both our love of technology as well as the paranormal, which is the Mobile Leprechaun incident. So Mobile, Alabama, 2006. March around St. Patrick's Day, a news report airs purporting that there's a leprechaun in a tree, and swarms of locals gather to see. Someone in the report theorizes it's probably a crackhead. A local man also shows a news reporter his special leprechaun fruit, which I think was your favorite part of the video.
Fruit was weird. You said fruit, I think. I think you might want to repeat that. You said fruit.
Well, I mean, it kind of did look like a fruit, though, in my defense.
Yeah, I guess, but it's, he said it was go ahead, I'll let you say it again.
A special leprechaun flute, and the video, while aired locally, sort of didn't make a ripple, but then it sort of became one of the first original viral videos on YouTube in 11 years. It's amassed almost 30 million organic views. It's been lampooned on South Park, The Daily Show, and more. On its surface, it's very absurd to watch this and believe that people want to believe in this, and I don't know whether or not they're buying into the story or they're actually just making fun of everyone else who believes that there's a leprechaun in their neighborhood.
Well, so until you mentioned this to me and brought it up to me today, I had never heard of this. This was, I guess, at a time when I wasn't really thinking about YouTube and viral videos. Do you know when it aired and when it ended up on YouTube?
Yeah, so it aired in March 2006 and it ended up on YouTube in March 2006.
Oh, okay, so it was one of those right away things. I don't think, judging from the anchor's reaction, both of them, I don't think they bought into the story. I think it was just a fluff piece that they probably had in their pocket when it was a slow news day and decided to put it on there, but it was really funny.
Well, shockingly, and this is the part that surprised me, there was a follow-up report done by some American broadcasters in 2014 where they identified the leprechaun in question. So they go back to the neighborhood in question, the Crichton area, and they start questioning people, and it turns out it's a neighborhood figure simply known as Midget Sean. So Sean,
okay.
So they find Sean and they interview him, and he subsequently explains how it was a prank that he and his friends were playing, that he dressed up as a leprechaun. They told him to hide in a tree, and then his friends ran over to people in the neighborhood saying, "Hey, there's a leprechaun in a tree." And so this sort of perpetuated the myth of the local Crichton leprechaun.
That's absolutely bizarre, though, that it took them that long, first of all, to figure out somebody was actually doing it. But I guess, did he recognize himself in the sketch that they showed?
Well, that's another great aspect of this, and that's sort of one of the questions I want to get into later on about the idea of why this video went viral. But yeah, this peanut-shaped man with the simple hat, the horrible sketch, is another facet of this great story. Also, something that you had noticed was the flip camera phone.
Yeah, well, so they made a big deal of people saying the reporter made a big deal of saying that people would show up with their cameras and even their cell phone cameras, and to take video of it. It was kind of funny to hear that. its early use of cell phone cameras. And cell phone cameras, I mean, this is pre-iPhone, right?
Well, yeah, it was a year out before the first iPhone.
Pretty much, right, to 2007. So this was 2006. So everybody was still using really garbage phones. I mean, not that the iPhone, I don't think that your first iPhone could even shoot video, but yeah, they were all showing up with the hopes of catching this leprechaun. I mean, one man was hoping to bring a backhoe to take down the tree so he could find the leprechaun's pot of gold. And so one of the more interesting parts was the very earnest man with his flute that had been passed down from generation to generation, thousands of years from his Irish ancestors. I don't know if you have any comments on that guy.
The special thing about him is he's clearly African American. While I don't disbelieve he may have some Irish blood inside of him, the idea that like there is enough Irish in his family in order to warrant the passing down of a magical leprechaun flute kind of surprises me.
Making it all the way to Crichton,
Alabama, correct?
It was really odd, and he seemed so he
believed
had a lot of conviction in that,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
See, so that's the thing that I think we're both interested with these kinds of topics is people that become so invested and so entrenched in whatever it may be, ghosts, psychics, UFOs. I mean, I think our favorites are all of the UFOs, right? Because there's some sort of thing. I mean, most scientists, intelligent people believe and understand that the likelihood of there being alien life forms somewhere in the universe is quite high, considering how big the universe is. It's the fact that they would be visiting us where most people...
And visiting us in such a way that it's almost predatory, right? Because it's all these abductions and mutilations, right? That is usually the usual narrative when it comes to UFO stories.
Yeah, I always go back to a really old Neil deGrasse Tyson talk where it's almost a stand-up comedy routine about UFOs. It's fantastic, and he talks about it as in the exact same way I feel about it, is that there's probably aliens out there somewhere, but they're not visiting us. And if they are visiting us, they're not going down to steal what's in all ways, it's not the best and brightest of our people that they're taking. Seemingly,
right. It's not like the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, right, where the UFO comes down right on the White House lawn.
Exactly.
No, this whole thing, right? It's the sleeping person in the middle of Ohio who gets snatched in the night.
They have nothing better to do, and they're trying to figure out a way to sort of get something. I mean, the thing is, some of these people seem really sincere about it too. That's the thing that kind of bothers me, is I wonder what they are feeling and what they are seeing and what they are believing. Because in many cases, I don't doubt that somebody saw something. It's just that you and I would have the presence of mind to say, that's probably a satellite. That's probably an airplane. That's probably a UFO. No, it's not a UFO. Or if it is a UFO, it's a UFO that in the sense of that it's
unknown, literally unknown.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, on the other side of the spectrum, there's someone like, Romanek, right, who... Suffice it to say, he is making a livelihood out of his sightings, and whether or not he has seen things that's beyond sort of the scope of what I sort of zero in on the fact that he's trying to make a living out of his experiences is what bothers me a little bit about that kind of thing, that he has people buy into him, right?
And look, this is something I'm probably going to bring up way too often, and it goes back to the Crichton Leprechaun, where they talked about people coming with their camera phones. Well, that was in 2006. It's 2017. Everybody has a 4K camera in their pocket at this point in many cases. Like, my phone can shoot 4K video. That's 4 times the resolution of high definition. And why isn't anybody catching anything paranormal on these cameras?
It's a very good point. You want to get into that, videos of rods. Why aren't people catching more rods, bro?
I see, that's something we're going to have to come back to often, because rods are one of the most important things of our lifetime.
They're really the discovery of a generation. Well, to your point, I love to play devil's advocate, so here it goes. You ready for this one? And this is just to state at the beginning, this is not something I necessarily believe in, but it's something that I've heard said so the 47 Roswell crash, a lot of the tech that we now have comes out of that being reverse engineered. And part of that reverse engineering is that we can't even shoot what we see because their technology as it is shields this kinds of recording from our alien overlords.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm sure.
I feel you are radiating confidence and positivity in my set of statements right there.
So it's the best type of logical fallacy, right? Where you can kind of just brush everything away and make it fit your narrative, so that where's the evidence? And well, we can't get the evidence. It's impossible to get. Fake news.
Exactly, just fake paranormal news, right? And I think you and I will have a lot of fun with that going forward. But yeah, I do enjoy the people involved, and I've explained this to my girlfriend a lot, that I do enjoy the culture surrounding it, and I don't actually believe in much of it. And like you were saying, I believe that some people have seen something? Absolutely. That is not, in question at all. But is it a genuine UFO in the classical sense of the word, the little green man or the little gray man coming out of a saucer-shaped vehicle and, taking things or showing them weird signs or whatever? I don't think that is actually what is happening at all. And I mean, there are dozens of plausible explanations for a lot of the things that someone sees in the night skies, right?
For sure.
At the very least, a dozen, if not more.
Most of the time, it's in many cases, why do you wonder, why are there so many UFO sightings near military bases? It's not because the aliens are attracted to the military bases. It's because there's these weird things that fly around military bases that you're not used to seeing. And when you're not used to seeing something, it really throws off your mind. So you kind of see, instead of seeing a helicopter, you see something moving strangely, but it's because of the angle you're approaching it at.
Double density. We're back to Double Density episode 1, and we're nearing the end of the first episode. We've covered tech, we've covered the paranormal kooks, and now we're sort of, as you were saying, putting a nice ribbon on the top of the first episode.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun to cover these weird topics with the paranormal and kind of tying it back to our enjoyment of technology. I think a lot of our shows are going to we'll talk a lot about what's going on in tech presently, but maybe more obscure things, or we're not going to spend hours talking about iPhone rumors and whether Samsung S8 is better than the iPhone 7 or how fast the next processor is going to be. We'll talk more about just what we enjoy, what we're liking, anything we're finding cool at the time. Obviously, when there's a big Apple announcement, we will talk about that because that's the most important thing in the world. And then we'll I think we're gonna be hitting on different topics. We'll probably pick something to talk about every week.
Yeah, I'm very excited to sort of, and as you put it, kind of look at tech through the lens of the past too. I think a lot of different podcasts tend to do tech news, and that's fine, but I don't think that's necessarily what we're aiming to do with this. I feel more like we're kind of, bringing up the present in order to sort of look at the past too, as well as sort of tie it to a lot of different paranormal things too at the same time. So I think there's that happy marriage between tech, the paranormal, and ways of bridging the two together, as well as sort of talking about topics that are very relevant to the present.
Yeah, I'm nostalgia is important to me for some reason. I really like to look back at things and see how far we've come, and that's something I think either my kid likes to hear from me about or gets really annoyed when I talk about that stuff. But she looks interested when I talk about it. I don't know if the boy's going to like that. He's only 3, he doesn't really care. He's more interested in watching Trolls over and over again right now.
Is that driving you insane?
Shockingly, no. The music is actually pretty catchy, and it's actually a well-made, fun movie.
So is that your recommendation of the week right there?
Yeah, Trolls.
Watch
with
Trolls.
Justin Timberlake and Anna Kendrick.
With that song by Justin Timberlake?
Yeah, he's the main star of the movie, and it's just a fun little song. I mean, I used to be a lot more picky with my music, and now I'm a little more relaxed and can enjoy different types of things.
Double density. This has been episode 1 of the Double Density Podcast with your hosts, Brian and Angelo. Tune in next week when we talk about the dangers of copying that floppy.
See ya.
Bye.